Let's try to make our oversight on the Ukrainian political week one more again. But before it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to recommend this channel to your colleagues and friends, because when we'll obtain the first 1,000 of our subscribers, we'll make a surprise for you. Maybe we'll make a online live translation. Maybe we'll make some other kinds of another work, not only my statements, not only my talking with you, but also a lot of live content. But we need first 1,000 of subscribers. This week we will talking about, of course, about the war, about the negotiation, about the strengthening of the presidential vertical in Ukraine, and about the economy. On December 5th, after a 12-day of break, Ukraine was again subjected to massive missile attacks from Russian Federation. About 70 rockets were fired, according to Ukraine. 60 of them were shot down by our air forces. Hits on the energy infrastructure and local blackouts were in many regions of Ukraine. The Sumy, Odessa, Zhytomyr regions were completely out of energy. The city of Odessa was also out of water supply. Pumping station and reserve lines were braked this strike. The situation with the energy supply on the left bank of Ukraine remains very difficult. On this bank of the Dnieper River has practically no generating capacities left. And the transfer of electricity is also extremely complicated due to the destruction of the infrastructure. It looks like Russia is going to cut the left bank of Dnieper River Ukrainian territory. Power outages are also observed in neighboring Moldova. But overall damage on Ukraine's critical infrastructure is less significant than the previous wave of shelling, although the situation is complicated by negative temperatures throughout the country. At the same time, Ukrainian strikes by also Soviet drones Tu-141 Strish on the Russian airfields Diaghilevo and Engels, on which the strategic nuclear aviation of the Russian Federation is deployed, Tu-95, Tu-22, Tu-160 aircraft, included in the nuclear triad of the Russian Federation. Probably these strikes, Ukrainian strikes, influenced on the scale of a missile attack on Ukraine. Damaging even 2 aircraft can reduce the number of missiles that fired on Ukraine by 20 till 50 units. Dealt another blow to the reputation of the military and political leadership of the Russian Federation, became the reason that the topic began to unwind in Russian informational publics and nuclear strike on Ukraine. The military doctrine of Russian Federation allows this to be done in the event of an attack on nuclear weapons carriers. All this happened and the day of the reopening of Crimea bridge after the repair automotive part to which Vladimir Putin personally arrived. The day of the reopening the Crimea bridge, which was supposed to be strengthened by a salute strike on Ukraine, which is accused in Russian Federation of undermining the bridge, turned out to be largely overshadowed. Despite the fact that the probability of the use of nuclear weapons by the Russian Federation remains extremely low, the incident will become an additional formal reason for the continued destruction of Ukrainians' critical infrastructure with the help of missile strikes, may cause an increase in military and mobilization measures in Russian Federation. At the same time, strikes against the objects of the Russian atomic triad increase the risks of further escalation of hostilities and create a formal reason for the use of nuclear weapons, the probability of which is still minimal. Indirect signs indicate that the possible preparation of a new Russian offensive in the direction of Kiev or left bank of Ukraine from the north, including from the territory of Belarus, or Lugansk and Zaporizhia directions. At front, there is no significant advancement of the parties, while the intensity of the fighting in the Donbass is going up. The Russian army is conducting a local, partially successful offensive in the Bakhmut, Avdiivsky and Liman directions. A difficult situation remains for the Ukrainian army near the city of Bakhmut, where heavy fighting continues. In the Kherson direction, the Russian Federation armed forces are also defending previous occupied lines, but also they are trying to obtain the islands in the center of Dnieper River. Negotiations. As for negotiation process, we can say that it turned to initial phase again when the parties exchange ultimatums. The European Union and the United States have activated the issue of a tribunal over the Russian Federation, recognizing the country as a sponsor of terrorism and confiscation of frozen state as assets, while simultaneously offering the Russian Federation security guarantees, not yet detailed, the so-called the carrot and stick method. But to start negotiations, France, with the support of Germany and the United States, jointly demanded that the Russian Federation withdraw its troops from the territory of Ukraine. The truth is not specified to what extent within the borders of 1991 or along the demarcation line until February 24 this year. So far, the Russian Federation says that there can be no talk of any withdrawal of troops. But the very fact of this dialogue, the exchange of initial raids and the discussion of the terms for negotiation, which has not happened in recent months, is already a positive sign. It is noteworthy that this week the United States Senate Committee approved a resolution that recognized Russia's actions against Ukraine people as a genocide. The document is now submitted to a popular vote in the Senate. Along with the initiative of the tribunal, this can be another way to put in pressure to the Russian Federation to soften its negotiation position on a possible peace treaty or truce. In general, the resolution of the United States Senate Committee, as well as the resolution of the European Parliament on recognizing the Russian Federation as a sponsor of terrorism, will not yet have any legal consequences for Russia. But perhaps it will also serve as another legal reason for the formation of international and national legal-based instrument for the confiscation of Russian frozen assets, about $330 billion United States dollars. Having not achieved specific prospects for NATO membership from the organization itself, Ukraine is intensifying individual work with the members of the alliance. Following the Czech Republic and Belgium, a declaration of support for Ukrainians' course to NATO was signed by Montenegro. On this issue, Ukraine will appeal to each country individually, a member of NATO. At the same time, declarations of this kind are not binding and their relevance is significantly reduced over time with the change of governments and leadership of countries. But this way is absolutely possible for Ukraine. Allied countries continue to allocate significant funds as assistance to Ukraine. The total declared amount is $113 billion United States dollars. At the same time, it should be understood that the declared assistance and the actual disbursed assistance are significantly different. Based on the statement of representatives of Ukrainian government, Ukraine obtained near $27 million. The difference is more than 4 times. At the same time, the audit of funds allocated to Ukraine is still being postponed because the majority of members of the House of Representatives of the United States Congress, where the majority is still for the Democrats, vote against the corresponding draft bill of the Republicans. The European Union now outnumbers the United States in declared aid. The main reasons for the change in leadership is the €18 billion macro financial assistance package for Ukraine agreed by European Union for 2023. Hungary is currently blocking this decision because Hungary demanded another way to finance it of Ukraine. And one more, let's talk about the local internal situation in Ukraine. Let's talk about the strengthening the presidential vertical in Ukraine. This week, the local court in Lviv region made the decision of dismissing the head of Chernigov, Atroshenko, from his post. Atroshenko has a long-time conflict with the office of Ukrainian president, and this conflict was changed in few ways already. Taking account this case around Atroshenko, which should be an example for another local heads, local governments around the Ukraine, we should also take into account the situation with the searches of SBU and other state bodies to the local city council in Odessa, local city council in Kiev, and also situation with near the local self-government in Dnipro. It looks like the presidential vertical office of president of Ukraine gives the sign to local elites to don't compete with them. Any competition situation in the war will lead to the defeating the local elites, to the local self-government. Also, we have very strange situation around the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, because 3 judges of Constitutional Court of Ukraine made a statement of dismissing from their post. Two of these judges, their ability, their contract should be finished in the March next year. One more of judges should be finished his duties on the 2027. But nowadays they made a statement, they go out from the Constitutional Court, and all Ukrainian political system is waiting for new judges which should be recommended by the presidential vertical, by the office of president. This situation will give the presidential vertical possibility to control the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, which opens the way for resolution different types of humanitarian problems, and also which opens the way for the Ukrainian president for remaking Ukrainian constitution at all, with the strengthening presidential power also. The government is also strengthening the control over supervisory boards of state companies, which at one time was a zone of competition between Ukrainians' Western partners and Ukraine. The Cabinet of Ministers adopted a resolution providing for the right of the committee for the appointment of members of the supervisory boards of the state-owned enterprises during martial law, to change the requirements for applicants and return to the primary stages of competition. In essence, now the decision to change the requirements for candidates for a position and restart the competition will be made at the discretion of the members of the committee for the appointment of members of the supervisory board. It leads to situations the government of Ukraine will be absolutely free to change any supervisory boards of state-owned companies, which previously were under the control of our Western partners. The situation around the Ukrainian Orthodox Church continues to unfold. Thus, draft law number 8262 on amendments to certain legislative acts of Ukraine to improve the legal regulation of the activities of religion organization was submitted to the Verkhovna Rada by the part of presidential party deputies and the deputies from the European Solidarity Party under the Petro Poroshenko. This draft law provides for a ban on canonical subordination to foreign religious organizations whose activities are prohibited on the territory of Ukraine and are associated with an aggressor country. Available, we are talking about the Russian Orthodox Church. Separate provisions of the law are aimed at cancelling the release of the Kyiv-Pechersk Lavra and other places of worship of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church if they recognize any connection with the Russian Orthodox Church, including the spiritual canonical connection. In the future, the situation around the Ukrainian Church will depend on the conclusion of the State Service for Ethnopolitics and Freedom of Consciousness. The structure turns into an instrument of working with this religion group, which will determine the nature of the statutory relations between the Ukrainian Church and Russian Orthodox Church. Given the fact that there was a quick replacement of the head of this structure in this week, it is likely that the decision will be political and not in favor of Ukrainian Church. But it is likely that the behind-the-scenes discussion of and bargaining are still going on around the future of Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Otherwise, the decision to ban this church would have been made quickly with the help, for example, of National Security and Defense Council tool. Economy. The budget of Ukraine is becoming increasingly dependent on external funding. Thus, in November, almost 50% of cash receipts are foreign aid, due to which social payments and other expenses are mainly financed. At the same time, virtually the entire amount of domestic revenue goes to military spending. In dynamics, external revenues to the budget continue to increase. Due to what in 2022 external debt increased by 15% compared with 2021, not so many. At the same time, the deficit of the general fund of the state budget continued to grow. Early in January-November, it increased almost five-fold amount to 800 billion hryvnias. In 2023, the National Bank of Ukraine plans to curtail the active issue of the hryvnia. According to the forecast, by the end of 2022, the hryvnia issue will reach 400 billion. In turn, the emission simulates the devaluation and the hryvnia and the growth of inflation. Inflation accelerated in October and reached 27% in annual terms. Revenues to the regional budget for the first 10 months of the year fell on average by 60% compared to the January-October 2021. Not so much also. Also, the most important factor of the growth, inflation, and the general negative for the economy was the intensification of Russian attacks against the critical infrastructure in Ukraine, in particular energy facilities. All this can result as an increase of the migration of people from Ukraine, which also leaves the going down the distribution, the business activity, and market activity in Ukraine at all. Thank you, friends, for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye. See you again. Have a nice weekend.